We absolutely love boxing on this podcast, and we had a couple of Australia's boxing team on this podcast in the lead up to the Paris Olympics, and I'm so excited to bring back another member of the team that went to Paris, Australia's biggest ever boxing team, and our most successful boxing team in over 60 years, I will add. And our guest today has such a unique story about her journey to Paris, and I'm so excited to hear it straight from her, because 5 years ago, if we were talking to her, we wouldn't be talking about boxing. We'd be talking to her about something completely different, which we're going to get to the bottom of right here. It's a pleasure to welcome to Off the Podium, Tiana Echegaray. Tiana, first of all, welcome to Off the Podium.
Thank you. Nice. You nailed my name, by the way.
I was going to say I was a bit nervous. I always get nervous with names that I'm going to butcher.
Yeah.
I practice so much, and as soon as the person says, you did it well, I'm like, yes, winner. I'm happy. So thank you. That's favorite part of the interview right there. It's happened already. So that's a pleasure to have you here to hear that, Tiana. But it's
Solid.
I love your story because it's just
thank you.
so unique that 5 years ago you could never have imagined that you would be at the Olympic Games. You let's be honest, you weren't even an athlete, Tiana. You were not even an athlete, and now here you are talking to an Olympics podcast about going to the Olympics. But can we just go back to that moment where all of a sudden you were like, I need to change my life. I'm going to do something different, and how that led you to going to a boxing gym and set you on this journey to the Olympics?
Yeah, I honestly, like, thinking about it now just feels like a bit of a blur because things just sort of happened after each other without me even realizing it. You know, like I was just, at the time when I first started boxing, I was working a full-time job in advertising. I just started in a commercial gym, not even doing boxing. I was just trying to do my own workouts, which were very boring and, not motivating me very much. But I saw at this gym that there was like a box fit class. I saw there was like girls doing it. And there was particularly like a couple of women that were running the box fit classes as well. So I thought, well, you know, that looks fun. Like maybe I'll just give it a go. Looks like they're getting a good workout in. Didn't think anything about boxing whatsoever. It just looked like something different to try. And then I started the box fit classes. I met the female coaches there, was taking a bit of a like natural, natural taking to the class. And the women were like, you know, maybe you should start at a proper gym, like proper boxing gym, give it a go. And I was like, I guess so. Like there's something a little bit more to this sport, obviously. Like I started seeing them hit the bag and seeing how cool they look doing it. And I think in my head, I wasn't even like thinking about boxing so much. I was like, I just want to look as badass as them. I just want to look as cool as them hitting the bag. But that was really the start of it. It was just like jumping into a class and all of a sudden loving it.
And which you say you work for an advertising agency and you're walking past. I mean, that to me just shows advertising works. Like, because if you're walking past a gym and all of a sudden like, oh, this looks good, I'm going to go give it a try.
Totally.
Were you just working for the wrong advertising agency then maybe?
Potentially, yeah. But like, I think, I don't know. The universe works in mysterious ways, you know? Like I just happened to be in the gym at the same time as this class was going on. But I think part of it was just my longing to get out of what I was doing day to day. Like I knew that being in an office and like sitting on my ass all day was just so like mentally exhausting and, you know, very unfulfilling. So I knew that I had to do something different and I had to, you know, put my hand up for things that were out of my comfort zone, really.
Because what's even more unique about that fact, it's not like you were competitive in another sport, you made the switch, you found it. So we get a lot of guests on this show who have gotten to certain levels of one sport, then all of a sudden they go to a completely different sport and that's where they go to the Olympics. Because as far as I'm aware, you weren't even really an athlete as a child, were you? This wasn't something you grew up as a sporty child, was it?
No, like, I mean, I grew up around a lot of sport. My family is from the Cook Islands, so we're, you know, very naturally gifted, I would say, like very athletic people. And I played sport at school, but nothing on like any kind of state or national level ever. Like I was just doing it because it was fun. I had to at school. But I never really like took a liking to any team sport and played it on any kind of competitive level. So to find it so much later when I was like 25, I think actually 26. In fact, yeah, 25, 26. But um, to find it much later and just to like do it because it felt good to do is like it's crazy to see where it sort of unfolded.
Because your mother and your auntie, I believe, were very prominent netballers in the Cook Island. They represented Cook Islands in netball, so that was never on the path. Like they
Yeah.
weren't trying to get you
No,
into netball, follow their footsteps.
yeah, like that's what I mean. Like people in my family are definitely sporty and athletic, but no, I played netball just at school, but they were never there, pushing me to play professionally or anything like that. I wasn't I was pretty like chubby kid as well. I didn't like running. I still don't like running. Like I don't really yeah, I didn't jump at playing sports so much. It was like kind of like lazy when I think about it. I didn't want to do it at all. There was no drive for me to take up any sport. So I don't think mum saw that in me to want to push it in me. So yeah, I can't tell you much more.
Were the Olympics something that you watched growing up? Because I read a quote that you were sort of watching the Tokyo Olympics in lockdown, never imagining that, of course, that you would be at the next ones. But I mean, were the Olympics something still that you kind of kept an eye on growing up?
I think to an extent, yeah, like there are, these classic Olympic moments that we can all look back on, particularly like our own athletes like Freeman and during the 2000 Olympics. But it just seemed like something so far away, something so unattainable and not within my world that I could ever achieve. I think like I never really thought about it being a possibility, but it was just kind of like this thing going on in the background. Um, the Tokyo quote that you're thinking about was, yeah, through lockdown. And I think at that stage I just started like boxing. So, boxing was on my radar. And I did specifically want to tune in to watch some of our Australian athletes because I'd heard so much about them. Um, and I think that was really like the beginning of that seed, being planted in the back of my head. Is it was like watching it at home and when the morale was so low during COVID and like, everyone was like losing their jobs, you couldn't, leave our house. Our future was very uncertain, So to see these people in Tokyo still out there competing with no audience in such a like rare fashion, I think was like, wow, like you can still go out and we can still do things in this world. Like things will change just as, as quickly as they did change during COVID. But I think watching them, I was like, that's crazy. Like that's mad. I wish maybe one day I could do that. I don't know. I don't know what it's going to take to do that, but thinking about it's always so crazy I've just changed so much since that moment. And to think like, Caitlin Parker and Harry Garside are now my teammates on the Australian team is crazy.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that. I mean, it was great exposure for the sport, obviously in Tokyo with Harry getting that breakthrough bronze. Obviously,
Yeah. Yeah.
Caitlin doing what she did there and sort of the story around her heartbreak. But then you had someone like Sky who obviously did very well in
Yeah.
Tokyo as well. So
Yeah.
I felt that Tokyo was a real turning point for the sport in Australia because it was sort of always a sport that we didn't get a much exposure of it at an Olympic Games, and Tokyo kind of turned that corner that has seen this real boom
Yeah.
for the sport all of a sudden, hasn't it?
Yes. Yeah. No, it was definitely a bit of a monumental moment for a lot of people in the sport, I think, because I think it sort of made or broke you at that point, like because there was people competing during just before the COVID lockdown. So then a lot of people either dropped off or started. So I think in my instance, watching that, I was like, I'm going to hit the ground running as soon as we're out of lockdown. I'm like, I'm putting my hand up for everything. I'm fighting. Like, I just want to be. I want to be a good boxer. Like, imagine performing on that big of a stage. Like, it's a crazy achievement. So, and it wasn't
Where,
something I was even like voicing. I don't think it was just like in the back of my head. I was like thinking about it subconsciously. Yeah.
but I guess there's a moment though that goes from thinking about it subconsciously to speaking it out loud. I mean, was there a
Yeah.
moment sort of from that point where through, switching from training to competing to obviously what led you to qualifying for Paris when we get to the Solomon Islands, but was there a moment sort of in between there where all of a sudden it sort of was that light bulb moment of this is a real possibility. I could be at the next Olympic Games.
Yeah. I think so there's a couple of things. Like after I made it to the Olympics, I had people reach out to me about three like a minimum of three. It might have been a few more, but they had reached out to me and they said, I don't know if you remember this, Tiana, but you told me that you wanted to go to the Olympics. And I was like, did I? I was like, when? When did I say that? Like, I don't even remember having that conversation with you. So, like, to have a couple of people tell me that, I was like, you're either making that up or I was just like, I don't know, on this like divine path that I didn't realize.
You do
Like,
get hit in the head a lot, so you might, kind of like,
yeah,
just
that too.
saying. I'm not a doctor, but just,
But like, I specifically, there was a moment. It was after I won nationals in 2022, I believe. Yeah. So 2023, beginning of that, we were at the AIS for like a camp, and we were starting to have the conversation about qualifying for the Olympics. This is what the pathway would look like. This is what you'd have to do. So to be in that room and be involved in that conversation, I was like, oh, hang on, wait a minute. I didn't even think this was going to happen so quickly. Like, I didn't think I was going to be, how am I in this room having this conversation right now? Like, I just won nationals. Like that, I think at that point it was my first, it was my first nationals. So I think I'd had maybe like 15 fights, like, which is
wow.
wild. Like, I hadn't even fought overseas, nothing. And they were already talking about like, this is what you'd have to do. And I was like, whoa, this is crazy. I guess I have an actual shot at it. Let's do it. Why not?
And it's crazy to think that that's 18 months away from an Olympic Games. When this isn't, like a 3-year cycle. Like, this is beginning of 2023. So you've got all of a sudden 18 months, and then I believe so you go to the World Championships in 2023. You've got the Pacific Games in 2023. So this is ultimately a bit of a whirlwind for you to kind of go on that path.
Yeah.
By the end of that year, you're an Olympian essentially.
Yeah. So it was like this fast track route, really, because Tokyo was actually in 2021, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
That's right. So the turnover for that was quick. But I think so much was happening, just one competition, one thing after the other, that it was very hard to like even just stop and smell the roses for a second and just be happy about anything that I'd achieved until it was over. So it was kind of like, just go, go, go. And it was good in the sense that I was, riding that momentum. I think that really played in my favor, that I was just so active, literally since my first fight. Like, I had my first fight in April 2021 and I didn't stop fighting. Like, I was just like, go, go, go until I qualified and then, in prep for the Olympics. So I think there's definitely something to that, in that I just kept it going, rode that momentum.
Well, I think I read you said about that first fight that it was almost like an adrenaline rush, that sort of there was nerves, but then it happened, and then basically as soon as you had that fight, you were kind of like, wow, this is what I want to do. I mean, do you remember sort of that feeling and kind of taking that ride and the momentum, as you touch on there, to kind of go into all your subs? Because you went like 8 fights undefeated, did you not, when you first started fighting?
I think so, yeah.
Pretty good start.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. So that helps, obviously. If you keep getting your hand raised and you're doing well in the state, like, yeah. And that was sort of half of it. It was like, oh shit, guess I'm pretty good. Maybe I could make it to nationals, and then next thing you know, you're winning the state title. You're being invited to nationals. You're winning nationals, and it's opening all these doors for you. But I think definitely my first fight, I just had no idea what I was getting myself into. I was like, not even thinking about competing. I remember like being asked if I wanted to spar for the first time, and I was like, "What? What's that?" Like, I'm just here like hitting things, right? Like, and then to actually be in there, and the level of aggression that you feel when you're in the ring, and the pressure, and how well you manage yourself in there is really telling to whether it is for you or if it isn't, because you have to be able to manage yourself in the chaos that is the ring, and have enough emotional maturity to be okay to get hit in the face and just keep hitting the other person in the face, I guess.
Pros and cons of boxing, right? You get to punch people, but you kind of get punched as well. So
exactly. But that's it. Like, some people get in the ring and they're like, as soon as they get hit, it's like, oh, no, this is different. This is very different to
Not
just
meant to
hitting your
happen. I'm
dad.
meant to be hitting
No,
you. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. So you've got to be okay with, that's what boxing is. You could potentially be getting hurt. So when I did have my first fight, I was just kind of like not really understanding the full consequences of what I was doing. And I think, it plays in your favor to an extent because you just go hard. You give it everything that you got. And then by the end of it, like this girl was coming at me too. I remember in my first fight, like she was full on in my face. And I did well to just like manage it and do enough to win. I can't even remember how it was probably a terrible fight. I can't even remember how well I did, but enough to win, like if I gave
Wasn't
my
that
hand
bad
raise
if
at
you
the end,
won,
I'm like,
right?
yeah,
You know,
yeah, exactly.
couldn't have gone that
But it
bad.
was, it
Which,
was, yeah, I was just saying like, the lead up to that fight was really the biggest thing is because you worked so hard, like
mm,
in full prep for, like 8 weeks or something, doing everything that was asked of me, like, that my coach is telling me to do, running, rowing, all these technical sessions, sparring, like it's so full on. And I think that was really the biggest part of it is just getting through the work that you're supposed to do, right? Like these are all the boxes that you have to tick. And after you've done that, it's like the most, um, you just feel so fulfilled after doing it because you just said, like, you did what you said you're going to do. And there's so much power to that, to upholding your word and just following through with the work that needed to be done in order to be successful. So getting a win at the end of it is like amazing. I could do that again. Why not?
it goes into that level of like, wow, okay, this is not bad.
Yeah,
Kind of keep
yeah.
going. That did you find that you first? I believe it was your first international tournament then with the World Championships in 2023. Was that was your first time you
Actually, my
fought?
first fight internationally was in Hungary. Actually,
Right.
we had a big tour in Europe. I think it was like January of 2023. Yeah.
So still in that
And we were over there.
period though. So still
Yeah.
kind of like
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
2023 period.
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
find? I guess my question on that is like when as soon as you enter the ring overseas and you're exposed to a different type of competitor that you probably haven't faced in Australia, how does that level of intensity change? And all of a sudden, does that change your perspective of what you're trying to achieve here? That all of a sudden, wow, this is what it's like to fight in a different part of the world. It's going to be a different path than maybe what I was expecting it to be.
Yeah. Um, I remember, my first fight in Hungary was like, as soon as I got in there and, the bell rang, I knew that I was up against something very different, very different to what I had fought in Australia, that's for sure. And I guess that's what is so beneficial about fighting overseas is that you're exposed to so many different styles and different, just bodies, different problems that you have to solve in the ring and you have to really adapt to the situation very quickly. So when I first fought, I was like, whoa, this is so different. Like, been out of my depth here. Um, and it was in Hungary too. And I remember like it's their winter, it's cold, it's dark. I'm like, I've never been to Europe before. We land and I'm like, what the hell am I getting myself into? Like, this is so scary. And like, I don't know any of the coaches or like the people very well. Like at that point, we weren't even close. Um, so I just felt like so out of my element and like, I think I can't remember the name of the town that we went to, but it was a country town, like in the middle of nowhere in Hungary, and it was just snowing and felt very dark and gloomy. But yeah, it was, and that plays into how you're feeling and your mood and how you go into the fight, and I fought the home girl as well, fought Hungary, and I was like, oh my god, like this is a bit out of your depth, T, but we carry on.
Yeah, I guess it's
But it was
those.
so monumental, though. So monumental.
Yeah,
I look back at it and I'm like, that was so good. Like, so good for me as a boxer and, my growth as a person too. Like, just to put myself in, throw myself in that deep end and figure out a way forward.
I was going to say that growth, that level to it, because I mean, again, rewind yourself. What 3.5 years ago, you're sitting in an office in Sydney, never imagining you're going to be, standing in a boxing ring in Hungary, basically freezing your
No,
ass off. But it's also, to add that level of, if you are aiming towards an Olympic Games, it's not going to be fighting in a small gym in Sydney. It's going to be obviously on a much bigger scale. So you need to be exposed to those type of things to help prepare you for an Olympics.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's so necessary. Yeah, absolutely. Like that first, from then on, it definitely got easier just to know that this is what I was going to be doing for the year. Get used to it because you're going to be up against some countries you've never heard of probably before.
Yeah. That must be fun going into a ring and going like, oh, that's a new country. Do you just whip out the phone and go into Google and quickly go, oh, okay, cool. Like, I can punch you even better now because I know of this reason of your country or something. I don't know. Like,
Exactly. Like Azerbaijan. I remember that one, like hearing that for the first time, and I was like, I can't even say that name. God damn it.
that's not a real country. They're making that. Oh, it is. All right. Okay, then. Well, good for that. There we go. Go into because you also the world champs that you said they were in India. So you've gone from Hungary to India, and then also you're going to end up in the Solomon Islands. I mean, all very unique countries. But India loves their boxing, don't they? And I know particularly female boxing is quite big in India. So what was that like to compete at your first world championships in India?
Oh, we felt like celebrities. We got off the plane and people were there like wanting to take pictures of us, helping us with our luggage. At first I was like, hey man, like don't touch my luggage. But at first they were like, you realize that they're like just so happy to see you. And I don't know, I wasn't really expecting anyone to know who we were, but I think because in Australia, like no one really knew who we were at that stage either, but or cares that much. So much boxing isn't like massive in Australia like it is in other countries. But no, it was definitely different. Like India is so chaotic, so many people, but everyone's so lovely. Like when we arrived there, it really felt like, oh, this is a big deal. Like we're going to the World Championships. It's kind of hit a bit harder once we landed.
Yeah, I can imagine. And are you the type of boxer who sets yourself a target? Like, I mean, the thing I love about boxers is that you're all so confident. I mean, you're always like, yeah, we're going to win the gold. We're going to do this. It's fantastic. But like, do you go into that with that mentality or what do you sort of set your sights for your first world championships?
No, at that point, I think I was just like, I want to win a fight overseas, which seems like kind of a low bar, but I think at my experience rate, I couldn't even tell you how many fights I'd had at that stage, under 20. I was just like, let's go in there, let's win against another country. I've never done that before because I think I'd lost at that stage. I hadn't won anything. So,
yeah, to interrupt, you might have. You just might not have heard of the country before. So I don't know if you checked all the, just based on what you're saying. So you might need to go back and check those fights. You could have. You never know. New Zealand, that's a country. Oh, okay. Just.
Oh, I just mean like internationally, like overseas, I hadn't won any bouts yet. So I was like, I just want to go and say I've won a fight overseas. Like that's a big achievement for me. So going into that, I fought Japan first. And it was probably one of the best. I felt so good in that fight, just so clear-minded and just relaxed, I think. Relaxed is probably the best way to describe it, and that I just wasn't tense, I wasn't stressed. I was just in there very confident, and I had a game plan as well. Like I was very well organized going into that fight. I knew what she was going to try and do, and I knew how to combat it basically. But yeah, the plan going into it, let's just win a fight. That's the first thing. And if you win one fight, then hey, you can win the next fight. Yeah.
Keep going, and you did win that fight, and then go through to the next round. Because again, going back to what we're talking about, momentum, confidence. Like, does it give you a bit more swagger? Do you enter the ring next against your Italian opponent? You're just kind of all right. Well, I've got that win behind me now, so let's go on. Italy, home of Rocky. Who cares? I'm going to kick her ass. Like, I mean, and that's kind of what you think.
Yeah. I mean, like. Yeah, after a win, of course, you have a bit of a chip on your shoulder for sure, I think. But particularly in that fight, I felt sick in India, and I was like so unwell. So watching back that fight and watching me walk out with a big smile on my face, I was like, I was in the back crying 5 minutes ago.
Wow.
That's not how my face does not say all that I was feeling, definitely. So I was very uncomfortable in that fight. I was really just trying my best to push through it. I think like I did all right considering, but I would love to rematch her. That's for sure. Now, yeah.
Rewind back there and maybe not quite have the sickness going into that, because it's
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
so like, I mean, we talk to all of our combat athletes from all the combat sports, and they're all so brutal because, it can be over so quickly. I mean, boxing's literally a
yeah,
sport where you could get knocked out within 2 seconds if, things went,
yeah,
Tara Moana, we need to get him back on the show. He did the opposite of that, knocking people out in like 5 seconds. That's great. But
yeah,
it's obviously, a brutal sport on many
yeah.
levels. But given that you weren't feeling great going into that bout, obviously it's not feeling great to lose. How do you sort of leave India feeling at that point and then ultimately still looking towards Paris? Are you still feeling it's a possibility? Was there stuff you had to talk to your coach, like we need to work on this? Like kind of what was that mentality like after the World Champs?
Um, I think I was obviously sad that I'd lost the second fight, but after it, like the things that I learned from that fight is that you kind of you got to keep pushing through because it's about who's going to be best on the day ultimately. Like a lot of people have their injuries and things that they're working through, and you got to find it. You got to find a way forward. And I think watching some of my teammates as well also feeling ill with the same kind of sickness during that time and still push through and still get through their fights and some still even winning. I was like, oh, there's still possibility to get through it despite how you might feel on the day. So um, it was definitely another big learning curve. There was all of these losses in the lead up to qualifying for the Olympics were massive learning curves for myself, and I think all very necessary in order for me to ultimately qualify. So looking back on it, I'm grateful for it because I was put in a lot of tough situations early, and I was able to manage it despite not winning. But I still feel like I'm still proud of myself regardless.
Well, you definitely managed it well enough because in Solomon Islands later that year, you win gold at Pacific Games, you qualify. Now, if I'm not mistaken, you were the first Australian to qualify, were you not? You were at least female to qualify. So you were the first who punched a
Yes.
ticket to Paris?
Yeah. Yeah. I was first up on the roster that day, and I felt the pressure. I'll be honest. Like going there, I was like, "Damn, don't stop this up. You've got to start on a high so everyone can follow you." But I also like going first because I don't like twiddling my thumbs waiting around to go up there. I don't like the anticipation. Yeah,
It must have been then a fantastic feeling then with all that pressure that you're talking about. That sort of again, I'm not doing this deliberately because it's a pun, Tiana, but punch your ticket. I should use it more often.
yeah,
Actually,
yeah,
it's kind of funny. But the vibe, the feeling, because it was obviously very difficult conditions for you in that gym in Solomon, very hot, very sort of humid and everything on those lines. But I mean, I've read so many great quotes that you said about what it felt to kind of qualify at that point. But I mean, just can you give our listeners a taste of kind of what that was like at that moment?
yeah. Just like the biggest relief of my life. It's just so um, overwhelmingly a great feeling just to follow through again to do what I said I was going to do, and to make myself proud, but all the people that had been following me and supporting me up until that point proud as well. I think when you have a lot of people behind you supporting you and wishing you, giving you well wishes and all that stuff, it's like you feel that pressure, but you also feel like, oh, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. You did all the work that you're supposed to do. What's left is just to get that ticket. So I was so proud of myself, so happy. And I was like, let's kick back and watch everyone else qualify now.
What was Christmas like that year? Knowing that next Christmas, life. I mean, we're not there yet at Christmas this year, but it's going to be a very different Christmas this year,
Yeah.
obviously, to last year, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, true. Well, Christmas. I actually went to the Cook Islands for a family reunion. So
Wow.
it was really nice to just go back, home to my family and reconnect with my family that I hadn't seen in a long time too. So, um, and just sort of like bring my life back down to earth for a second because I'd just been riding this crazy wave all year. Just to sort of like switch everything off and spend that time, nurturing some of the relationships in my life was really, really helpful, good for the soul, ready for a reset and to hit the ground running when I um, had to be in prep for the Olympics in January straight away. So,
Mm.
um, everyone was just so happy for me and proud and just like eager to continue to follow my journey into the new year. So yeah, it was the best. It was a good little, I think it was like a 2 week reset that I was over there, and exactly what I needed, especially just going into the new year and just re-solidifying my why, like let's just do this. It was for me when I started, but now it feels much bigger than me. It's everyone that sits on Team T.
I love hearing that because when we had Tara Moana on before Paris, we talked a little bit to him about his Cook Island heritage and kind of what that means to him, and just obviously, such a proud little country in the middle of the Pacific that gets behind their own, and sort of to have basically two members of the Australian boxing team representing them proud there. So, I mean, do you always kind of feel that extra level of pride that you're not only representing the green and gold, but you're also representing the entire nation of the Cook Islands as well?
Oh, absolutely. Like, I love Australia. I was born here. I'm an Australian, but I'm also going to acknowledge my heritage and all parts of me. That's all it is. I think many of Australians would probably resonate with that as well because we have, you know, so many different parts of us that um, we are lucky enough to celebrate here in Australia. We can bring forward where our heritage is from, where our families are originally from. And I think that's really important to acknowledge that and give back to those people. And uh, I feel very connected to that side of myself. So to bring it forward and have, the small, loud and proud nation of the Cook Islands behind me was like, it was the best. It felt really powerful, felt really strong. I felt confident going into the new year, knowing that everyone was behind me and would continue to be behind me. Um, even it's interesting through my boxing experience, I found out that my grandfather actually had um, wanted to take up boxing, and like I spent a bit of time with my grandfather. He passed away when I was young, um, but I did spend some time with him in Rarotonga when I was very young, and to hear that was like it kind of like connected the dots for me in a sense because I always thought like what was bringing me to boxing because nobody in my family ever boxed on my mum's side or my dad's side. So to hear that, I felt like a little bit more connected to him. I felt a little bit more like I was doing exactly what I was supposed to be doing. And I really wanted to make not only my family proud, but him proud. Like, hey, maybe you didn't, get the opportunity to box, but I do now. So I'm going to go out there and do my best.
Great, what a great story! It's just I love hearing all those family ties and the connections that so many of those Pacific Island nations have, and it's just sort of such great to see. And then your dad's side, I believe it's Argentinian, which is obviously
Yes.
a very passionate, proud country as well. So you
Yeah,
have
exactly.
very much all of these kind of like connections to these countries that really kind of brings that. So I mean, I can imagine a World Cup for you. Is it just Messi fever? Like, I mean, is that just kind of you have to kind of like have that going on in the household?
Oh yeah, yeah. Like my late grandmother was incredibly incredibly proud to be Argentinian, and I miss her a lot. But she's just such a strong Argentinian female figure in my life, and my dad too. Like I hope to go to Argentina one day. I've never been, but again, just like wanting to embrace all sides of me and reconnecting with that side is definitely a goal of mine as well. Hopefully, I can go there in like the coming years. I would love to.
Fingers crossed. Tell you one thing, the round of 16 at the last Men's World Cup must have been pretty hard for you to watch Argentina play the Socceroos. I mean, are you even allowed to cheer for anybody? You'd have to go lock yourself in a room and pretend that it's not on.
Yeah, I know. I don't even watch soccer, but I always hear
There you go.
people
You
like
get
or
out of it then.
football
You're
rather.
fine.
Yeah. But yeah, no, oh my God. I wouldn't hear the end of it. My family's Argentinian side, yeah. It's
Yeah,
rough.
just we'll put that one aside there. I mean, you again, everyone on the boxing team is in such a unique position because you all knew you had qualified. Obviously, it gets formally announced in like March when Anna Meares gives you the ticket, all that kind of stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you're obviously still prepping for it. So I mean, like, was that period between when you qualified and then when you got on that plane to Paris tricky, like mentally? Because obviously you can do everything physically to get yourself ready, but I mean, the Olympics is kind of a big deal, and you can never really fully prepare yourself to it until you're there. So how do you deal with sort of the mental aspect of that weight that you had to have before the Olympics?
Yeah. I think we were lucky to qualify when we qualified, like early in the sense that we knew what was ahead. I know that some sports they sort of qualified quite late, very close to the games. So that's sort of another stress in its entirety. But um, I think mentally preparing was like it was pretty tough. I started working with a mental coach actually. Her name's Claudine Chi, and I think I started working with her maybe 3 months out before the Olympics, which is, as she said, probably not enough time to, make your mental fortress as solid as it could be. But
I like that
in that
mental
short time,
fortress. Can use
yeah,
that
like you
more.
want it to
That's
be,
good.
you want
Yeah.
it to be solid. What is it? Fortress of Solitude.
Yeah, very
Superman.
Superman.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah. Well,
more Superman references on this podcast, Tiana. Keep
yeah.
going. I like it. It works.
That's what it feels like though. You need like such a solid mindset going into the games, and I think she completely changed that for me. Like really, just from the core and up. What are my core beliefs? Like what do I value? Because if that's not solid, then everything that you put out there is not going to be solid, and your self belief is going to be quite flimsy. So it was about solidifying what my beliefs were, and then going into my prep, my training sessions, my sparring, solid. Going into every session and saying like I'm going to do well. It's very tricky. It's very hard to sort of weed out all the negative talk that you give yourself, and it's happening without you even realizing. Like for the most part, I feel like we go round in circles in our own head, and we're really like our own biggest enemy. And yeah, sure, we hear that a lot, but then it's not until you start doing that internal work that you really understand what that means and how you're contributing to that negative self talk. And if you're not aware of it, then it's like, yeah, you're just going round and round in circles. So shout out to Claudine because she completely shifted my mindset with that and helped me just sort of identify things that I could actually be in control of, and could change. So um, going into my fight into Paris, like I'd never felt more confident in my life going into a fight. So, and that has a lot to do with the mental preparation, like journaling every day, doing meditation, writing things out, just speaking the negative things and the positive things that were going through my head, because it made me so much more self-aware of how I was standing in my own way for the most part.
I love hearing that. We always love talking about sort of the mental aspects of all the different sports we cover on this show. And just on the journaling side of it, I mean, what are you writing down? I mean, I'm not trying to pry and show us your personal diary, Tiana, but like what are you sort of jotting down in that journal to help you towards Paris?
Yeah, so it's different things. Like sometimes I was writing out, like Claudine would give me specific questions maybe, um, or I would just be feeding off my own thoughts. So like maybe I would be writing down questions that I would be asking myself that don't actually have any answer. So like for a lot of the time, like if I did a bad job inspiring, I'd be like, why am I so shit? like what is that question? There's no answer to that
Mm,
question, right? Like
yeah.
why am I asking myself that question? And it's like identifying those kinds of questions and writing them down and being like, that's like so negative. Why are you asking yourself that question? You need to stop doing stuff like that. So it was more about like being self-aware of the things that were going on in my head. So even after a sparring session, I just go home, into my room during camp. I just write down like how I was feeling, and then like maybe look at it a couple of hours later and be like, wow, I'm so mean to myself. I'm so like
Mm.
negative. Like, I got to be a little bit more kind. That's what that means, really. Be kind to yourself. But um, it would be that, or it would be like, um, maybe after a training session, what are the things that I did good? What did I get out of that training session? What did I do well in? And maybe what are the things that I didn't do well in? Um, and it was just a way for me to vocalize and put down what was going on in my life so that things didn't just like go by without me, you know, addressing them. I don't want to let bad behavior go by without me addressing it and fixing it, because that's how I was just creating a much more solid mindset, was just like cleaning up my mind, doing a little tidy, basically. I would
We all
call it.
need a
It's
little
just
bit of a
like,
tidy like that, though, don't
yeah,
we? We need it sort of mentally. But
yeah,
it's really fascinating with that, because I can imagine now that if you were to get that journal and look at it, even what you were writing 6 months ago, a year ago, and kind of
yeah.
reflect to where you are right now, like, I mean, it'd be a bit of an eye opener, I could imagine.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it was a really good way for me to hold myself accountable, just to be like, um, write a list of the things that I want to do well today. And then at the end of the day, because I'd be thinking about that through the day, I'd be like, oh, I've got to get back to my list. Like, did I do that? Did I do that? Remember, don't forget about my list. What about the three things that I said I was going to do today? So I was always like in such a, horse blinders kind of mode, where I was just like so focused on the tasks and the things that I had to do that I said I was going to do, that I was like, it was just sharpening my mind every day, I feel like.
Did you have a moment when you got to Paris or before Paris? Maybe it was when you got your uniform, when you met Anna Mears. I don't know. Was there a moment where for you, you said to yourself, I'm an Olympian, or it hit you that you are now an Olympian?
Yeah, good question.
We like to ask at least one on this show every now and then, so thank you for that.
um, I don't think it was until like I was getting ready to walk out to my flight that I was like, oh shit, this is like a big deal, because I thought about like Tokyo. I remember just watching um, Katie and Harry walk out, and remember thinking like how cool that was to just have your name be called out on the amplifier, and have the Australian flag behind you and do a little shadow box as you walk out. Like it is just like, oh shit, it's my moment. Like it's my turn. Like um, I think it was such a cool experience just to walk out and perform in such a big, pretty ring, and know that there was so many people watching, but it didn't particularly feel like it. It was just so in my zone. But I think I think that's when it really hit me, like just walking out, warming up even just before. But then I think even just getting my ticket in Canberra with the team, I felt really proud to be part of that team, and that was the beginning of the year too. So of 2024. So I was like, oh shit, here we go.
Hmm.
6 months. It's going to be the most exciting and challenging period of my life, and it definitely was.
Because, I mean, I know when we spoke to Taramana and Monique before Paris, and both sort of alluded to just how close the team was, and obviously the biggest team that Australia's ever sent to an Olympics in boxing. And it really even showed on the ground. I mean, I covered boxing. I was at many of the bouts. I sadly wasn't at yours, but I was at several of the other ones. And
Yeah.
every single time an Australian fought, you were all up in the stands, the loudest
Yeah.
in that stadium. Like you could hear you from the
Yeah.
other side. It was great. And like, just you were all around each other. And then even when we got to Roland
Yeah.
Garros, and we obviously
Yeah.
had Charlie and Caitlin there as well going
Yeah.
for the medals. Like, it was still a similar thing. So just that
Yeah.
camaraderie you all must have along this journey you've all had. It seems so tight in that boxing team.
It really is. Where I feel very, very lucky to be part of such a diverse and massive team. I think because we all, that first trip that I was explaining to Hungary, that was all of us in Paris as well. Like to see us come from that trip and then to come to Paris is like we'd all come an incredibly long way. We'd all seen each other work so incredibly hard, and we just genuinely wanted each other to do well. Like you can feel that we were all just very close, and wanted the best for each other. And I think that really helped the morale, the positive energy that we had going into the Olympics. We all truly believed in each other's capabilities, um, and I think despite not everyone medaling, I think we were all just like so proud of ourselves to get there and do Australia proud. Ultimately, I think like we were such a cool representation of Australia. I think I've always thought that
100%.
we were
Yeah.
are so diverse in all of our, cultural backgrounds, personalities, body types. Like we're just all encompassing of what Australia is, and what it means to be Australian. We're able to come together and go out there and give it our best crack.
100% agree. That's a great way of really putting there. And I have to say, through like, and this is no disrespect to all the athletes I dealt with on the ground, but like it was always such a pleasure to deal with the boxers, because I mean, you touched on the word personality. I don't think you can, get any other sport on the Australian Olympic team and say that the Australian boxing team lacks personality. I mean, it's always a delight to sort of deal with that. But like, before I want to get to your bout, obviously, Shannon, this is about you. It's not necessarily about your teammates. But one thing I did want to ask you, and we're sort of on the subject of it, for female boxing, Caitlin winning a bronze medal at the Olympic Games. I mean, how big of a deal is this for female boxing in Australia?
Oh, it's massive. Like, especially, you just forget who is paying attention, like who is tuning in and who it's actually impacting. Because watching Katie not even win a medal at the first Olympics, like in Tokyo, was, monumental for me. Like, I ended up on the Australian boxing team for the next cycle. So when I think about the younger girls who are tuning into boxing and thinking about giving it a go and seeing that it is so achievable for Australian women to win a medal at the Olympics, is like, it's massive. Its representation does really matter. And I think it's only going to really boost the next generation of women that want to give it a go. I particularly think 2032, that's our, next Olympic Games in Brisbane. I think it's going to be huge. I think I can't wait to tune in. I probably won't be at that games, but
never say never.
Tuning in.
She gave a great quote after her semi-final loss, but she basically said that, we're seeing at these Olympics how successful Australia are. The medals are flowing everywhere. And she particularly said swimming, like we're winning so many medals in swimming. She's like, come Brisbane, come LA, it's going to be boxing. There's going to be, the medals are going to be flowing. And like, this has just come from an athlete who had just lost about, like you would think she would, but she was just so confident and so just like proud of her achievements and the sport. And that's again what I just love about where boxing's at in Australia. So I mean, it just seems like we're in such a good place, not only in female boxing, men's boxing, all the entire sport leaning into Brisbane.
Yeah, oh exactly. We really are. We're like you said, I think Tokyo was a big shift in our boxing. And I think after Paris, again, like having the biggest boxing team ever qualifying for the Olympics was massive in itself. So just to be able to tune in and see so many Aussies out there on the big stage it's massive, and it's going to really have this positive, ripple effect in the years to come. I'm sort of positive of it. Yeah.
Your bout now. I want to ask one question before I get to that. So obviously you're direct into the round of 16. So you basically fight the winner of the round of the 32. Are you aware that you're straight into the round of 16, or is that luck of the draw? Like, or it's sort of, how does that work? Do you know?
So we got told that, we knew we were going to get a bye actually because of the way that the draw was. So we were notified probably, I think, like a week out or something like that who was going to be up first in the round of 32. So our names weren't there. We were seeded into the next round. So we knew that it wasn't going to be into the round of 16. And
do you prefer that? Would you prefer to have an extra fight so you get a bit of that momentum we were talking about, or do you kind of like the rest?
Yeah, there's pros and cons, like if you get the bye, it means you're closer to the medal, like ultimately. True. Like that it's like
you need to win 2 fights, right? And you win a medal. So
yeah, exactly. But in saying that, I feel there is benefit to fighting straight up as well, is just to get in there, have the experience of fighting in the ring, so the next round that you can be like more confident, you know what you're doing, you feed off that momentum. I like that. And there's that anticipation as well. You're waiting to fight, you're watching everyone else fight, and you're like, oh my god, getting more nervous. But there's pros and cons. I think everyone's different. I try not to dwell on it too much because it's out of my control. The draw is going to be the draw. Like that's not really up to me. So I'll take what's thrown at me. But um, yeah, so round of 16, that was like, it was maybe the second or the third day that I ended up fighting. Yeah.
Mm. And then were you familiar with Hatise, your opponent? Had you fought her before, or kind of had she been in the wheelhouse of like research that you sort of had paid much attention to her?
Yeah. So I definitely done my research on her at that point. She was fighting, oh my God, oh, Charlie. She's a girl from Great Britain, and they were both, monsters in the ring. So I knew whoever I was going to fight it was going to be tough. And to be fair, like I'm in a circle of 22 other girls, so anyone I was going to have to fight was going to be hard. They're all, the best in the world. But I definitely done my research on Hattis, and I knew that she was going to be tricky and long, and she was very tall as well. I think she's probably the tallest 54-kilo female that I've fought before, and very experienced. Her father was like a world champion. I knew I was going up against like a beast, but I was
Mm.
like, I don't care. You have to.
Do you remember sort of the nerves? Like, were there nerves heading into that arena, or was it sort of you hear the crowd and the buzz and you kind of you push that aside and because you're ready to go?
Yeah, no, I was definitely nervous. I think, but like I was saying, I was so confident in that fight. I think I'd just done so much groundwork internally in the lead up to that I was just so ready to go. Like I'd ticked all the boxes. I'd done everything physically and mentally at that stage to be the best that I could be. I really do believe that. I think I was the best that I could be, um, considering everything, my experience level, the amount of work that I'd put in, everything, all the little variables. I think I really did. I was my best that I could be. So I'm proud of that. Um, but the nerves, I think I was just focused on me. I was more so focused on me and my game plan and what I was going to do in the ring and what I wasn't going to let her do in the ring. Yeah.
I mean, it's been obviously a couple of months since that fight. I mean, you said directly after the fight, she was very good. There was no shame in losing to a very skilled opponent.
Yeah.
I mean, can you sort of, now that time has passed, how do you reflect on that bout? I mean, sort of same feelings? I mean, do you look at it differently now? Kind of how do you reflect on it now?
Yeah, now I'm like, I feel pretty free of it. I feel like I'm at peace with the whole thing because at first I definitely felt a lot of heartbreak. I was very like, there's so much leading up into that moment, and then for it to just be over straight away, it's like, oh wow, now what? What do I do with my life? But looking back on it now, I feel like no, I feel good about it. I feel like yeah, there's definitely things I could have done better in the fight, but at the same time, it's like I did the best at that moment. If I was going to go back and fight her again, I would approach it differently. Um, and I feel like way less emotion thinking about it now. I think after the fight, I was just so beat up about it, and I remember because they interview you
Yeah,
straight
straight
after
into
the
the mix
fight.
zone. We're right
And I
there
was
waiting
like,
for you. That's our job. We're right
yeah,
there for
yeah.
you. Yep.
You get out of the ring, and I'm like, when you lose as well, like it feels like it gets increasingly worse, like the
Mm,
feeling, because your hand doesn't get raised, and you're like, oh, it's okay, it's all right. And then you get out of the ring, you start walking out, you start seeing people that and you're like, oh my God, it just starts setting in, and you're like, this is the worst day of my life. That's what it
uh,
feels like. So to have people in your face and be like, hey, we're going to interview now, and you cool to answer some questions. And I'm like, well, give me 2 minutes to cry and then I'll
mm.
come and answer some questions. So like I feel way less emotion about it now. Like obviously it would have been better to win, but I feel at peace with it. I'm proud of my efforts. Can pat myself on the back for making it that far for sure.
If it makes you feel any better, Tiana, I'm definitely one of those journalists who, in those moments, I feel incredibly awkward interviewing somebody in that emotion too. I know there's some who don't give a shit; and they just
Yeah,
shove it in there and they want to get the soundbite. But I remember
yeah, yeah,
one of the days I was at the boxing and sort of where we would go from the media zone into the mix zone. You sort of had to. It was this
yeah,
weird zigzag. You often felt you weren't meant to be there anyway,
yeah.
and I had to get through this door to get to the area, but the boxer who had just lost was standing right in front of the door absolutely bawling her eyes out, being consoled by her
Yeah.
coach. And I had to awkwardly be like, excuse me, I need to go and interview. Like, because I had to get there. Otherwise, like, I just felt so awkward because I'm just like, I don't, like, not, like, this is, I feel so horrible for this athlete right now.
Yeah.
Do you, after those sort of like, what do you do at that point? Do you go into the room? Do you break down? Like, do you lock yourself in the village that night and just, put on some sad music and just not want to see? But like, what do you actually do that night to try and kind of alleviate that pain that you were feeling?
Yeah, I think I remember answering the questions of the interview, and I was crying. I was just crying through the whole interview basically. But I think I still strung my sentences together pretty well and answer the questions
They
as
made
best
sense
as
in
I
the
could.
articles that we wrote, so that's fine. That's the main
Yeah.
thing.
But after that I just went straight to my mum. So my mum had come to watch me fight, and I think just seeing her like that made me like so emotional. But I was so happy, and my coach as well, my home coach was there. And I had like a random friend that came from London that I was like not
Oh,
expecting to
wow.
be there, but she just trained and came, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Thank you. Um, so to see I just went straight out the back, saw the coaches first initially, had my little cry, said got out all the negative thoughts that I had to them. And it was nice actually for them to just like console me and make me feel better about the whole situation. And then I went straight out to my mum. I had two of my other aunties there that had come from, Australia and New Zealand. So, and like these are women that haven't even been like to many countries in the world. Like they go to maybe like New Zealand, Australia, the Cook Islands. So for them to travel all the way to Europe was like a really big feat, and I felt so like grateful for them to make that journey for me. And I just spent the evening with them and some of the other family members of the boxing team that were there as well. Like we had a little Australian hub. So I
Great.
just spent the night with them, and they were all like, in my head, I'm thinking, oh man, I feel like I've let all these people down. My aunties are here, my mum's here, and they're probably, they're here for 2 weeks thinking that I was going to fight for 2 weeks, and I lost my first fight. And then I see them and they're just having the time of their life. Like they are with the families, they're laughing, they're like having dinner, um, having a couple of wines. And I'm like, you guys are having the time of your life, and I'm so glad. Like, I'm glad that you're loving this experience despite my loss. And I think that it flipped it around for me because I was like, oh, like you're in Paris. This is crazy. Let's enjoy ourselves. Like, let's just
Let's go.
have a laugh. Let's catch up. Yeah, exactly. And I just immersed myself with people that love me. Like that was really it. Is just to remind myself that people are still proud of me regardless of the result, and that I should be proud of myself too. So
You
surround yourself
well,
with love, I would say.
well, I like that because you had a great post on Instagram, sort of about your journey, where you said there is a popular proverb across the Pacific that says it takes a village to raise a child. This expression is deep rooted in my family and it's stuck with me for as long as I can remember. And then you added that you didn't get the result that you came for, but just like a well-built house, a strong foundation family can weather any storm. And despite the heartbreak, you realize just how much of a meaningful endeavor this truly was and that you are so proud of your evolution. I mean, that just sums it up because, again, as I said at the top of this interview, 5 years ago, there's no way you could ever have imagined that you would be sitting here on an Olympics podcast talking about being an Olympian, let alone sort of going that level. So, I mean, I think that just sums it up perfectly.
Exactly. That's all I've come to realize is it's really truly my evolution as a person is like something to be so proud of, and I've completely changed because of boxing. It's just flipped my life upside down, and I'm so grateful to have found it and be the person that I am now and doing the things that I'm doing now. I'm like, it's crazy, but the universe has my back. That's what it feels like.
That's the main thing. We always ask our guests in terms of the Olympic experience, Tiana. Like, I mean, did you get into pin trading? Did you bump into any celebs in the village? Did you try the muffin? Like, I mean, give us all sort of the behind the scenes, village and Olympic life outside of the competition.
Yeah. Well, I didn't really experience the dining hall until I lost. When I lost, I was like, I'm going to the dining hall every
Because you
night.
don't have to worry about your weight now. You just go to town, right? That's the
Exactly.
best thing about losing is
Exactly.
that you can just
Yeah.
go to town on eating. That I can imagine.
Yeah. And that was kind of like my comfort in the time where I was feeling really low. It was just like, so dining hall, let's go. Wood fire pizza, muffins, let's
54
go.
kilos? What's that? I'm going to eat 54 kilos worth of food tonight. Let's go.
Exactly. And it's so hard to just let it go too, because you've just been
Mm.
in this routine for so long. Training twice a day, you checking your whoop, your steps, your freaking how's my sleep going? And then all of a sudden just be like, I'm gonna throw it out the window. It just feels very weird and surreal. Um, but a process in itself and a necessary one too. You need to give yourself the whole mental reset and just give yourself a bit of a hug and let go.
You need those comfort days, right? You sort
Yeah,
of,
totally.
you need to have it there. But did you do the muffin? How good was the muffin?
I did. It was good, but I feel like it's overhyped.
Okay. Oh, right. Okay. You're the first to say it's overhyped. Tell us why. I'd like to know. Like, we only hear positive things about the muffin.
it's I don't know. I think because muffins are not really my thing. I'm not like huge
Okay.
about muffins, but it's the center of the muffin that was really, the cherry on the whole thing is that it was hot and gooey and like a little lava cake. So when I had it, I would just eat the
Right.
center and be like, no, I'm done with the rest of it.
It's
I
funny
wouldn't
you
even
say
eat.
that.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that because like I mean a muffin's what? Basically like a mini cake, right? And
Yeah.
everyone loves cake. And I don't dislike cake. I'm not saying that, but
Yeah.
I also am a person who I don't go out of my way to eat. There are other things I'd rather eat than cake.
Yeah.
So I totally get what you're
Yeah.
trying to say with that. So,
Exactly, exactly. And I feel like some muffins can be really dry. Like this one was
mm.
it was pretty moist, but it was also like I don't know. I could have nicer things. There's a
Did
tiramisu there that was very nice
Well, I
too.
was going to say, did you have a nicer thing at the? Was there something that was your favorite? Like, was it the tiramisu, the wood fire pizza? Like,
Yeah.
what was your favorite at the village?
The wood fire pizza was definitely like top tier. It was very good. And then the desserts, I had different desserts out, but I think yeah, the tiramisu that I had was definitely like my favorite dessert to have there for sure.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. Well, maybe we'll
Yeah.
ask that as a question
Doesn't
to
get
people.
enough
Tiramisu.
doesn't get enough recognition there, the
Well, that's what I'm saying.
tiramisu.
We got to start this up now. It'll be like that. Our new
Yeah.
question to all of our Paris guests: tiramisu or muffin?
Yeah.
And we'll
Yeah,
have a
exactly.
tally,
Exactly.
and then we'll see maybe if we can start the trend towards the tiramisu. Did you do pin trading? Did you get into the pin trading at all?
Um, I tried. I was pretty terrible at it. I think it's also just because I'd be with a group of friends that were so good at it and they're just so onto it. So they just
Mm.
take everyone that we'd walk past. They'd be like, hey, do you have any? I'm like, damn, like you guys are so quick, you're so onto it. And I'm like so not in that realm of pin trading. But it was also like it's a good way to like meet different people as well, I think, just to connect with different countries and yeah, have like mini competitions with people. Like, oh, I got way better pins than you, or like, or you think one person has a cool pin of like one of the countries, but then you find out that that country has like two other way cooler pins, and you're
Mm-hmm.
like, oh my god,
Yep.
they gave me the shitty ones, they gave me the good ones, like, damn. But
Did you
it was
also
good
find?
fun.
Did you find the pressure? Because the one thing I found is that, like, I mean, we admittedly didn't get given many Australian pins, so ours went pretty quickly, at least in the
Yeah,
support stuff. But
exactly.
then
Yeah,
you would get to a point where they became so rare that whenever we were
yeah,
accosted by a volunteer or somebody, like literally when I left Paris
yeah.
at the check-in counter, they were asking me for pins. I'm like, dude, like I'm leaving your, like, okay, great. But like, did you feel I
Yeah.
felt horrible every time somebody would ask me and I couldn't give them one because I didn't have any.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I made a bit of a rookie error in not knowing that they were going to become, scarce
Mm,
eventually. And I sort of gave the pins up very early. And
yeah.
I was like, well, what am I going to do
Got to
now? I've got
bide
no
your
more
time with
pins.
them, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I
Yeah.
had like maybe two more pins and I was like, I've got to pick and choose my favorite countries right now
Right.
because I'm
Did you get
out. I'm out.
did you get a Cook Islands pin? Or did
I
you manage
did.
to get?
I did
Yeah,
get
I
a
was
Cook Islands pins.
gonna say that would be your number one, right? Like
Yeah.
you need to get a Cook
Yeah, and I
Islands
got an
pin.
Argentina pin too. I
Oh,
got
there
the, I
you
got the Cook
go.
Island
All
Argentina
right.
pin.
They're the
That was
ones
the
you
main
tick off
ones.
the
Yeah.
list. Did you do uniform
Exactly.
trading at all? Did you trade any sort of Aussie kit with any other countries?
Um, Actually, no, I didn't. I don't know other people did. So some people
Okay.
they definitely did. I was trying to get a Cook Island t-shirt actually, but no, I was unsuccessful.
We'll get a Cook Island athlete on the show, and then we'll arrange something somehow. Maybe
Yeah.
we can do it that way.
Yeah, yeah.
We're gonna wrap up with a set of get to know yourself questions, Tiana. Before that,
Oh,
it's sort of that weird point now where I feel I can ask this question. I wouldn't ask you this question like a week after the Olympics because it's not on your mind, but.
yeah.
What's the
Sure.
future now for you in terms of boxing? Because I've read varying different things that you've said. You've
Yeah.
said that this is my one and only Olympics. I'm not going on. But then you said, oh, I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, you're obviously
I
still
know.
training. Like we're doing this in
Yeah.
November of 2024. What's the mindset
Yeah.
right now when we're doing this?
I know. I think at this point, I know that I love boxing, right? Like I think I'm not quite done in the amateurs and that I definitely will compete again. I'm not doing nationals. So like I said to myself, I'm not going to compete for the rest of the year. I would need to I just want to go back to training and actually enjoy it and just like not be training with this tremendous amount of pressure on my back. So the biggest thing for me is just to strip everything back a little bit, get back to, fixing a few things technically, enjoying boxing for what it is, get back to being, the student that I loved being when I first started boxing, putting myself back into the community. And at this point, I'm just sharing as much of my experience as I can to anyone that values it and that wants it. So anyone in the boxing community, I'm doing a lot of teaching at the moment, which I'm loving. So that's what I'm doing right now, and that's what my focus is. But I think next year I will definitely get back into the ring, and I will definitely give it another crack and see where it leads me.
Well, we 100% know there's a Commonwealth Games now in 2026, and that
Yeah,
boxing's one of the
exactly,
sports.
yeah.
And not to spoil the private conversations that I share with my guests off air, but you did mention to me off air that you would like to get back to America again, and just saying the next Olympics are in America. So, perfect excuse to get a ticket to the United States, just saying.
Yeah. Well, if, hopefully you're still in New York. You can come
Hey,
by and
exactly.
say what's up.
I'll just be like, hey, I told you. I was shouting out, and you're like, told you. There you are.
Yeah,
like, told you.
exactly.
There you go with that. Tiana, we'd like to wrap
Yeah.
up all our interviews with a set of get-to-know style questions. Now, as always, these are questions that Team Canada gave their athletes ahead of both the Rio and the Pyeongchang Olympics. And as always, an optional drawing element. How are your drawing skills?
How are my drawing skills?
You're not saying terrible straight away. So, oh no, there you go. Okay, never mind. You went there because usually people are just sort of like shit. No, move on. But like, if you want to, you can. We asked. You can draw a picture of a teammate. You can draw a picture of your. Like, I mean, I'm just going to stop there. I'm going to put this out there. Draw a picture of Tara Moana. I want to see what you would draw, like this giant man beast of a creature, or
Wait, where? I've got to get a pen and paper right now.
I usually say you can do it and send it in to me, but now I kind of want to put the pressure on you and make you do it like while we're actually doing this.
Yeah, hang on, wait, Carl, I'm getting.
Go for it. Yes, I like this. This is what I actually need to do more on the show for our audio listeners right now. She's literally run off to get it. She's got a pen and paper. This is what I need to do to pressure our guests more and more. All right.
Wait, I'm drawing.
I'm not even going to ask you the first question because last time I did this with the guests, they got so distracted with my questions they didn't even draw it. So I feel like I need to like play some music for you now or something like that to draw this.
Yeah. We need some like thinking time music.
I actually think I can probably provide that for you. Here we go. I don't know what this music is, but let's try that. How's that for music? I don't even know what this is. It's somewhat distracting, but like I'm in a game show or something like that. Again, for our audio listeners, she's literally drawing this right now. You've got to go onto YouTube right now and watch the pressure of this. And Tara Moana is going to see this picture, and he's either going to get you a really good Christmas present or probably never talk to you again. We're going to get him back on the show and make him draw you now as kind of like a comparison to see what he to see what he thinks. He didn't draw anything when we had him on the show, so no pressure there, Tara Moana, if he's listening. All right, I think this music's about to run out.
This could be a new thing.
It is. I always feel like I'm sort of too nice. I feel where I'm always give the guests the option, like, hey, do you want it? And like everyone says no. So I'm like, okay, let's move on. From now on, no. I need to be hard ass Ben. I need to be like, you've got to draw. Otherwise, I'm going to edit this podcast and make you sound like an absolute dick. I don't know. Like I could threaten them with the wrath of the podcasting world on them. So I love
No, I
the
think this is
actual.
definitely a new thing.
Well, I'm just again the absolute intensity that you've got in your eyes right now drawing this. Like you are taking this very seriously, and I really appreciate this. This is like this the competitive.
Uh,
This is an Olympian right now. The competitive nature. Draw it into them.
I think
Literally draw it into them, and
I
she
think
she
this
goes into
is
it.
too.
I am so looking
Five,
forward to seeing this.
seven, eight.
All right, is there lots of detail going into it?
Okay, this is it. Hang
All
on.
right, okay. The big reveal.
Yeah, so this is kind of terrible, but anyway, this will do.
Okay. All right, here we go. Oh, that's
If you can see
amazing.
it.
I can see it. What's he saying in his bubble there?
He's saying Scucks Deluxe because that's what he
Sucks
said.
deluxe. That is seriously an epic. That is brilliant. Right now, I do have a round of applause on this soundboard. I've got to find it. Hang on, where is it? There we go. I don't often play that. Filmed in front of a studio audience. That's that might win the drawing stakes. There's been very few guests on the show have done it, but like you're gonna please take a photo of that for us after this interview so we can share that on social media. But that is
And he's also got the 15 stars of the Cook Islands and then
Ah.
the Union Jack in the middle.
you've even gone full. I thought that was just the gold medal that he should have won in Paris, but no, like that's
Yeah.
all right. My new challenge is we're getting Terramilano on the show and he is drawing you. And we're going to compare it. That is, what did I say at the top of the episode? My favorite part was you saying I pronounced your name correctly. No, that bit right there is my new favorite part. So there you go. You win. We're going to top this out with these questions. We haven't even got to the questions yet, Tam. Let's see if they go. All right. Your favorite all-time Olympic moment is?
Oh gosh, that's really tricky. I'm just gonna say, watching Harry Garside win a bronze medal was like insane. It was just the most. I G'd up watching that. I was so G'd, and I watch it. I have actually watched it more recently, and it still like gives me goosebumps. It's amazing.
Great, fantastic. Love hearing that. Have you got his book? Did he give you a copy
No,
of it?
I probably don't get his book. I've heard him talk so much on the team. I'm like, nah. I've
got it behind my monitor. I feel like I'm holding it up right now. Now available, but it's there over there, bro.
I would implore anyone to go and buy it 100%.
Yes.
Like he's got so many good things.
All non-teammates of Harry Garside who don't have to listen to him talk, buy the book. All right? That's,
exactly.
That's the best way of doing it. I like that answer, though.
Shout out to Harry. Love Harry.
I think you're the first to ever answer Harry, and I think we need to have more people answering Harry, so I like that. As a kid, your favourite sports team was?
As a kid, my favourite sports team.
Yeah.
Good question. I think it was like surprisingly like the Tigers, like the league team.
Yeah, we're talking West Tigers here, rugby league.
Yeah,
okay,
West Tigers.
Right.
Yeah. Because I don't know, just like growing up around like that Benji Marshall era.
Oh yeah.
Prime Benji Marshall era. It was just like such a time in league. It was so fun. Also, my brothers were very much into league. My whole family. So I'd be tuning into that shit all the time. It was a G up as well.
you're making all West Tigers fans nostalgic when they actually used to be good. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they're appreciating this interview even more. If you could be any superhero, who would you be?
Oh, shit, that's a good question.
There's two of us in this interview now. I'm doubling my average.
Any superhero? I'm just gonna say. Ooh, it's so hard because I really like Doctor Strange. I like that he's like
that's a superhero
time and stuff.
You can say Doctor Strange.
I also love Superman as well. I actually do really like Superman because and he can like turn back time as well. Like he can
technically
fly so fast
around the world thing. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But there's something like a little bit nostalgic about him. He's just like an old superhero. He's just like a good guy. But then also has like, you know, his kryptonite, his thing that can
the one
hurt him.
He doesn't exactly hide that's his weakness, right? Like it's not like a secret where you find out what a superhero like. It may as well just be on the front page of every newspaper. Hey, Superman, indestructible but kryptonite. Like
and I think he sort of makes him more relatable in a sense. Where you're like, oh, you remember that he is a man, like he's an alien, but he has. he's got vulnerabilities like a lot of us do. Yeah.
In-depth answers here. I love this. Like, it's just not a simple, like, you really, I love it. Like, you're getting to the nitty-gritty of it. So this is
Yeah.
very intelligent answers. Your favorite music artists are?
Oh, my favorite music artist? That's really tricky. Um, because I feel like they always change.
Well, who's right now? Who's on
Um,
the Spotify? Who's on the gym list? Have you got the AirPods going on when you're sort of sparring or hitting the bag or?
Honestly, at the moment, I'm listening to so much like old R&B. Like I forgot how much nostalgia I have for old like Usher and
Oh
like
yeah.
Bow Wow, Sierra, like all of those like old bangers. It just takes me back to when I was a young girl and I was just like so in love with that R&B culture.
Yep.
And I've been going back and listening to all that kind of stuff. I listen to a lot of Afro beats as well. I like a
Mm-hmm.
lot of 90s hip hop that really
Yep.
jays me up in the gym. Like Tribe Called Quest, Tupac, MF Doom, all those kind of. I
Now it's
love that
making me
stuff.
sad that Snoop didn't go to. I don't think Snoop went to boxing during Paris. I think he went to pretty much every other sport, but
No,
I don't remember seeing Snoop at
yeah,
the boxing.
I
So
know, I know, I know. And he was in the village too, and I didn't even see him,
ah,
but I heard like he did like he was getting paid a tremendous amount to do
oh
any of
yeah.
the commentary and stuff on some of the games. But I would have been mad if he was a commentator
I
on the boxing. I would have loved it.
it seems like a sport because like there were some of the ones he went to which were kind of odd, but then you can make like I saw him he was at skateboarding when I was out there, and he was also at breaking when I was at the breaking. So I mean that was
Oh,
kind of
was
like
he? Oh,
saw him there, but it was sad not to see him at the boxing. So
yeah.
come on,
I'm sure
Snoop,
he would have
LA.
made it
He'll be
fun.
there in LA. Come on, that's his backyard basically. We've
Oh,
talked
true. Oh,
food,
actually, yeah.
so there's more reason to go to LA. Snoop, come on,
Yeah, it's
that's
true.
incentive. We've talked about food, but if there was one food that you could eat for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Hmm.
I want you to say oats now, based on our.
I think maybe one food for the rest of my life. This
Hmm.
is very hard. I'm gonna say like Middle Eastern food
Oh yes, yes.
because there's like salad, protein, there's bread, there's like hot chips. There's like there's some variety there. You can have that in different ways, but at the end of the day, it's just protein, veggies, and a bit of carbs. You
But
know,
it's
like
also like it's not ridiculously bad for you, is it? Like it's sort
no,
of
yeah,
they know how to cook
yeah,
their
because
food delicious, but
yeah,
also not like complete. Like I'm in America,
yeah.
it's not like everything's fried, right? So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love like Middle Eastern food. It's so good. Um, because like, Italian is great. I love
Mm,
Italian, but
hmm
to eat that every day, I don't know. It's like
yeah.
it's all carbs. It's a lot. I
What's
also really
Cook?
like Japanese food, but
I was
yeah.
going to ask, is there Cook Islands like cuisine? Like what sort of do you
Yeah.
have in Cook
Yeah, yeah,
Islands?
yeah. So we have like hummus, which is they're basically cooking meat underground.
I was like a hungy, like they have in New Zealand.
Like a
Like
honey, yeah,
yeah,
exactly,
okay, right,
exactly.
right, yeah,
And it's beautiful meat, like very tender. I
nice.
actually love Cook Island food as well. Like my mum is a tremendous cook, and she just makes like beautiful potato salad or mayonnaise they call it, which is like a
Mm.
beetroot infused potato salad. So they have like
Oh, nice.
veggies, egg. It's so flavorsome. It's delicious. But and then like taro and raw
Mm.
fish, and it's actually there's a lot of really nice things in Cook Island food, but it's it can be very rich and it can be a lot to have every single day. Like I
Okay,
wouldn't have it every single day. It feels like a treat in a sense. Like
right.
they and there's like a lot of fruit, and I love that the way that they eat is that like they're having there's so much color to the table there, and they eat everything together. So there's the fruit, there's bananas, there's you know kumara, which is like sweet potato, taro, and they have beautiful meat, salads, raw fish. Everything is put together, and it's like
Wow.
that's the best kind of thing. Is like I love having bits of everything when I eat. I love to,
Put it all on the plate.
try
Wow.
a bit of everything. Yeah,
Making me
but
hungry here
again,
now,
not every
Tiana. I gotta,
day.
gotta stop asking all these food questions at the end. I should ask them at
Yeah,
the beginning when I forget about it, so I don't have to go straight away and eat
yeah.
food afterwards. One thing that you've always wanted to do is so like this is for example, a lot of the Canadians will say like I've always wanted to skydive or I've always wanted to
Yeah.
climb Mount Everest? I don't know if there are two of your options, but what's one thing that you've always wanted to do?
First thing that comes to mind, honestly, is I've always wanted to learn more about uh, Pacific Island navigation. Like
Okay.
that's like it's been a massive interest of me for a really long time, and I've said I've always wanted to like learn a little bit more about that, and even one day go on one of the vuckers, go on one of the canoes,
So actually one of like boats and kind of
yeah,
go around. Wow, that
yeah.
would be interesting. Wow.
Yeah, like actually go on and learn about it, and because the way of navigation traditionally is it's all um natural forms of uh making sense of your surroundings. So what is the current doing? What are the clouds doing? What are the birds doing? Where's the sun? Where are the stars? Like I love that connectivity that Pacific Islanders have with their environment, and I would love to learn a little bit more about that, and hopefully just keep that part of the culture like a little bit more alive, because
Mm.
it's important. That's such a crazy skill, and I think Pacific Islanders have been named some of the best navigators in the world before Captain Cook and the people that are on ships and stuff. So those ancient ways of navigation are so interesting to me, and one day maybe I can learn a little bit more about it.
I love these unique answers. These are answers that I could never imagine that I will get on the show, but like that you're doing so well. I thought it peaked with the drawing, but here you go. Like you're doing so well with
Yeah.
that. If you had to do karaoke, what song would you sing?
It's probably going to be ooh, Mario. Let me love you.
Oh, right, yeah. I was thinking you were about to say the Mario theme, and I'm going like, wait, well, hang on a minute, what? No, but then that's where you went. Okay,
Yeah,
understand.
or
Yeah,
like
all right.
Mockingbird by Eminem for sure.
Oh, yes. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I kind of really want to see all 12 of the Australian boxing team just out in the town drunk doing karaoke.
I
Like
would
there's
kill
just
it.
something about that
We'd kill
now
it.
that just it's on my bucket list, you know? So,
Well, what have the other answers been actually? What have they said?
I'll be
What are
to be
the other
absolutely honest
songs?
with you. These questions often alternate. They're not always usually the same because I generally pick a
Okay,
different
okay,
athlete, and I don't actually think with Tara Moana and Monique I asked them karaoke.
yeah.
So
Oh,
have to
we'd
get
kill
them
it.
back
We do
on.
well.
You know, I have to go there. Last one I'll ask you here: if you could be an Olympian in any other sport besides your own, what would it be?
Ooh, such a good question. I don't know, what other sport? I'm just like so drawn to maybe sprinting,
Okay.
like the 100-meter sprint. Like there's something because I watched that. I watched some of the athletics, and there's something so like um magical about that, like capturing that little moment. It's like it's not much time,
Mm.
but to be the like fastest person in the world, I don't know, there's something cool about that. Feels like a superhero.
That's something pretty cool to drop at a party or something like
Yeah,
that. Like, what I just
yeah,
fastest man, fastest woman in the world.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
you know,
exactly.
just something to put out there. You
Seems
know,
cool.
that
Yeah.
was Tiana. This has been so much fun. If people want to follow your journey, social media, I mean, TikTok, Instagram, any of those, like,
Yeah.
where can people follow you out there?
Instagram is definitely where I'm the most active, I would say. Trying to branch out into other socials, but
Do you have TikTok? Do you have TikTok at all?
I do have a TikTok, and there is not much on it. Everything on there is because I'm tagged in Tina Rahimi's TikToks, and she is very prevalent on
Hey,
TikTok.
hey, that in
Um,
itself is a win, right? She's a social media star, so come on.
yes, exactly. I actually have one TikTok that I posted, but Tina actually made it. She made it, and it did very well. It
Hey,
got a lot of views, but it's our after party at the Olympics.
is there
Us just in
karaoke
our
involved?
headquarters. Well, I mean, you could say that because everyone was singing like along to the music. It's just
Counts.
all of us just yeah going hard. It's some of the most like patriotic shit I've ever seen. It's just people like singing what is it? ABBA singing Freed from Desire
Oh, yep.
over and over again,
The anthem of the
waving the
Olympics.
Australian
Come
flag.
on. Yeah.
Like exactly. Shirts are off. we're twirling them around. We're so happy we got through it. It's like it's the vibiest TikTok that you'll see. So if you wanna have a laugh and check out my TikTok, that's the video to watch.
That's worth a follow. And if that isn't, then nothing is. So
Yes.
we'll check that out. We'll tag that out there. But this has been such a fun chat to have you on the
Yeah.
podcast today. And no matter where life takes you, whether it's to another Olympics, Commonwealth Games, or navigating the Pacific Islands, we wish you the best of luck, and we'll get you back on to learn all about it in the future.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Ben. You've been the best.